She stormed onto my driveway like she owned the place, waving a clipboard in my face. "You can't park here," she yelled, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. I looked at her, calm but confused. "Ma'am, this is my property." She laughed like I'd told the funniest joke in the world. "Not anymore," she snapped. "This neighborhood follows HOA rules and you're in violation." I blinked. "I'm not even part of your HOA." That single line hit her like a slap. Her fake smile vanished and she stepped closer, almost shaking with anger. "Oh, we'll see about that," she hissed, dialing her phone. Within minutes, 2 police cars rolled up, lights flashing, sirens slicing through the quiet morning air. She pointed right at me. "That's him. Arrest him for trespassing." I stood there still. My neighbor across the street peeked through her blinds. Another man recorded from his porch. One of the officers walked over, hand on his holster. "Sir, we got a call saying you're refusing to leave HOA property." I could feel my heart pound, but I didn't move. "Officer," I said slowly, "I bought this house last week. This is my land." Karen scoffed. "He's lying. We have an HOA meeting about him tonight." The officer's eyes flickered between us. "Do you have proof of ownership, sir?" I reached into my folder and pulled out the closing papers, the ink barely dry. The officer's brows lifted. Karen's confidence started to crumble, but she tried to recover. "Those could be fake. You people always try to cheat the system." I looked her dead in the eye. "You might want to check your system again." The second officer leaned in to see the papers and muttered something to his partner. Karen's voice trembled now. "He's not part of the HOA. He can't be." I smiled slightly. "You're right. I'm not in your HOA." I paused, letting her confusion grow. "But your HOA is definitely in my land." Her face froze. For the first time, she didn't have anything to say. She had no idea that the land beneath half this neighborhood, including her house, had just been transferred to a new owner, me, and this was just the beginning. Viral line. She called the cops on me. Without realizing I literally owned her front lawn, Karen's voice cracked as she shouted, "That's impossible! This neighborhood's been under HOA management for 20 years. She looked at the officers like they'd side with her automatically, but they didn't. One of them was still holding the papers, scanning the legal descriptions. I could tell from his face he'd just noticed the section number, the same one printed on her address. I took a small step closer. "You see, the previous owner of this land, Mr. Dalton, sold it to me 2 weeks ago. Not just this house, the entire section your HOA sits on." Karen's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The color drained from her face. "You're bluffing," she said weakly, but her eyes darted toward the papers again. I turned to the officer. "Sir, I'd like her to stop trespassing on my driveway. She's been harassing me since I moved in." The officer nodded slowly. "Ma'am, we can't arrest him for being on his own property." Karen snapped. "You don't understand. He's trying to take over our community." I folded my arms. "No, I'm just taking back what I legally own. Maybe start reading the fine print before bossing people around." She started pacing, muttering under her breath, and I could hear the panic building. "This can't be real. We had control of this street. We own this." I leaned against my truck. "You leased it, Karen. Big difference." Her phone buzzed. She glanced down and froze again. Her face went pale as she read the message. I could see the reflection in her glasses. HOA board group chat. "Karen, did you see this? Our land deed shows new ownership under his name." She looked up at me, trembling now. "What did you do?" I smirked. "Nothing illegal. Just business." She clenched her fists. "You think this is over? You're going to regret this." I shrugged. "I doubt it, because I haven't even told you the best part yet." The officers exchanged a look. Karen took a step back. "What are you talking about?" I took out my phone and opened an email from my lawyer. "See, your HOA's lease expired last month, and I just decided not to renew it." Her jaw dropped. You can't do that." I smiled calmly. I already did. The moment hung in the air, her world crashing piece by piece. While the neighbors came out, whispering, filming, realizing the truth. Viral line. She tried to call the cops on me, but they ended up explaining property law to her. Karen's eyes were wide, her hands shaking as she pointed her phone at me. "You're not taking this neighborhood from me. I built this community," she screamed, her voice echoing down the street. The neighbors started gathering, murmuring among themselves. Some were recording, others just watching the HOA queen finally lose her crown. I kept my voice calm. You didn't build it, Karen, you managed it. And badly. That made her snap. She stormed up the driveway, getting inches from my face. You think buying some land makes you special? You'll never control me. I looked down at her trembling hands. You already signed the lease under the HOA's name, remember? Everything your group controls runs through me now. Her lips parted in disbelief. She turned to one of her board members, who had just arrived, a nervous man clutching a binder. Tell him he's lying, she barked. But he didn't look at her. He looked at the officers and said quietly, He's not lying. We checked the county website this morning. The ownership was updated. He really owns it all. Karen froze like someone had cut her power. That can't be. I was supposed to renew it next month. Except you didn't, I said softly. And now your HOA can't legally enforce a single rule here. The murmurs turned into full-on chatter. A neighbor whispered, So, we're free? Another laughed nervously. No more fines for parking on our own driveways? Karen's eyes darted around. No, don't listen to him. He's manipulating you all. I took a step closer, keeping my tone low but firm. You had everyone living under fear and fake authority for years. You sent warnings, threats, fines over flowers, fences, even kids' bikes. But it's over now. She looked like she wanted to scream, but nothing came out. She just stood there shaking. Her entire act collapsing in front of her neighbors. Then her phone rang again. She hesitated, then answered it on speaker. A man's voice came through, stern and official. Mrs. Hall, this is Officer Daniels with County Records. We've confirmed the HOA lease has expired. You're advised to cease all enforcement activities immediately. The entire crowd gasped. Karen's shoulders slumped as the phone slipped from her hand. I looked around at everyone watching. No one here owes another dime to the HOA. Someone started clapping, then another. Karen glared at me, eyes wet. You think you've won? I smiled faintly. I didn't have to win. I just stopped losing. Viral line. She ruled the neighborhood like a queen, until I bought her entire kingdom out from under her. Karen's mascara had started to smear, but her pride was still fighting to breathe. You can't just walk in here and destroy what I built? She yelled, her voice cracking. We have standards. Rules. This neighborhood was perfect before people like you came. The crowd fell silent. Everyone could hear the word you echoing. In her tone, the same one she'd used for years to make others feel small. I took a deep breath, keeping my eyes on her. You mean before people stopped being scared of you? She flinched, glancing around. A few neighbors nodded quietly. One older man stepped forward, voice trembling but clear. Karen, you fined me $200 because my grandson's ball rolled onto the grass. Maybe it's time you stopped. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I pulled out my phone again. You know, I wasn't planning to interfere. But after what you pulled today, calling the cops, trying to humiliate me, I had my lawyer run a check on your HOA's financials. Karen stiffened. What did you say? Turns out, I continued, your HOA's funds don't exactly line up. Several withdrawals, unapproved expenses and payments, all signed by you. The crowd started buzzing. Her face went pale. That's a lie, she cried. You hacked something. I turned the screen toward her. It's public record. Karen, you should have thought twice before using community money to remodel your kitchen. A woman from the back shouted, That's why our street repairs never happened. Another yelled, You took our fees. Karen backed away, shaking her head furiously. You can't prove anything. I don't have to, I said quietly. The county audit team will handle that. I sent them everything this morning. Her jaw dropped. You what? I shrugged. Consider it a landlord's duty to report misuse of property funds. The officers who were still nearby exchanged glances. One of them whispered something into his radio. Karen suddenly looked smaller than ever, cornered, desperate. You ruined my life, she whispered. I looked her dead in the eye. No, Karen. You did that when you forgot that power isn't ownership, it's responsibility. Her phone buzzed again. Another message popped up from the HOA board group. Karen, we're done. The HOA is dissolved. And just like that, the woman who thought she ran everything ran out of power completely. Viral line. She tried to destroy my peace with fake power. So I ended her fake power with real ownership. Karen stood there in silence, surrounded by the very neighbors who once feared her. The same people she'd fined, insulted, and controlled for years now looked at her with a mix of anger and relief. Her perfect little kingdom was crumbling in front of her eyes, and she couldn't stop it. She took a shaky step forward. "You don't understand what you've done," she whispered. "Without the HOA, this neighborhood will fall apart. People need order. They need me." I tilted my head, studying her. "No, Karen, they don't need control. They need peace. And you never gave them that." The air felt heavy. Even the wind was quiet, carrying the tension between us. She tried one last desperate trick, straightening her shoulders and pointing at me again. "You think you're some kind of hero? You're not. You're just another arrogant man trying to take over." I took a step closer, my voice low but steady. "You're right about one thing. I'm not a hero, but I am your new landlord." Her face twisted, disbelief and rage mixing together. "You're bluffing." I pulled out another folded document from my back pocket. "This," I said, handing it to one of the officers, "is the ownership record for all HOA-managed properties. The county transferred the rights to me last week." The officer glanced through it and nodded slowly. "It's legit." Karen's knees almost gave out. "No, this isn't happening," she murmured. Neighbors began whispering again. Someone said, "So technically she's been standing on his land this whole time?" Another added, laughing nervously, "Guess she's the trespasser now." Karen looked around, panicked. "You can't do this to me," she shouted, tears finally rolling down her face. "I gave this neighborhood my life." I looked at her, softer this time. "And in return you made everyone else's life miserable. Maybe it's time you learned what peace actually feels like." The crowd murmured in agreement. People started walking away, shaking their heads. The officers stepped back toward their cars, one of them giving me a small nod of respect before leaving. Karen stayed frozen, holding the useless HOA clipboard against her chest like a broken shield. I turned to head back into my house when she yelled after me, "You'll regret this." I stopped at the door and looked back. Maybe, but at least I'll regret it on my own property. Her lips quivered, but no words came out. The woman who once barked orders at everyone couldn't even speak. Viral line. She said she ran this neighborhood until she learned she'd been living on my land the whole time. The sun was setting now, painting the street in a soft orange glow. The neighborhood, once ruled by Karen's endless complaints and fake notices, felt quiet, peaceful for the first time. Kids were playing again. A few neighbors waved at me as they took down their HOA warning signs from their doors. The sound of laughter replaced the usual tension that used to hang in the air. Karen, though, stood alone by her white SUV, still clutching that clipboard like a piece of her broken pride. Her phone buzzed again, another message she didn't want to read. I could see her reflection in my window, her face pale, her eyes hollow. For once, she looked small. I stepped outside with a calm smile. "You don't have to keep fighting, Karen," I said gently. "It's over." She didn't look at me. "You took everything from me," she muttered. I shook my head. "No, I just took back what was mine." I paused, watching her breathing grow shallow. "Maybe now you'll see what power feels like when it's used to protect, not control." She turned her head, eyes glassy. "So what now? You'll make me leave?" I sighed. "No, you still live here. But from now on, you'll live like everyone else under the same peace you never gave them." She said nothing, just stood there, staring at the ground as her world slipped out from under her. A few weeks later, the story spread everywhere. News outlets called it the HOA collapse. Videos of the moment I revealed my ownership went viral, millions of views overnight. People were calling it poetic justice. But I didn't care about fame. I just wanted to live in a place where my daughter could ride her bike without getting a warning slip for noise disturbance. One afternoon, I found a small envelope in my mailbox. No name, no address, just a note inside that said, "Maybe I needed this lesson. I'm sorry." I folded the note and smiled quietly. Sometimes victory isn't loud, it's peaceful. I looked at the yard, the street, the homes that now stood free from fake power. "I didn't fight for this land to win," I murmured. "I fought for it to breathe again." And as the wind carried away the last echo of Karen's reign, I knew something deeper. Justice isn't revenge. It's balance. Viral line. She tried to own the neighborhood through fear. but I owned it through freedom.